You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind.
With the emergence of global internet, a human population of several billions, an electronic noosphere, that we are now within the shadow of this transcendental object at the end of time.
I find it a little difficult to say what the subject matter is going to be, because
Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
Shake and bake, steps back, three-pointer, bang!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Midnight Variety Hour. And if you're wondering why it's dim in here, it's because when I was 4 in 1999, a movie was released by the Wachowski brothers and Warner Brothers Pictures titled The Matrix. It changed my life, and today, the trailer for the 4th installment of the film is out, The Matrix Resurrections. Adam, cue the trailer.
Thomas? You seem particularly triggered right now. Can you tell me what happened?
I've had dreams that weren't just dreams.
Am I crazy? We don't use that word in here.
Why is he out of therapist?
Listening to Jefferson Airplane.
Hi.
Have we met? One pill makes you larger.
He's taking blue pills.
And one pill makes you small. And the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall.
Time to fly.
If you want the truth, Neo, you're going to have to follow me.
The only thing that matters to you is still here. I know it's why you're still fighting and why you will never give up. You don't know me, no?
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
Oh, look. 12,
22, 21, yeah.
It's a mirror.
Yeah.
Wow.
A palindromic date of release. And now here's a trailer for some shit we don't care about. All right. Well, what do we think?
I don't know, man. It's a little iffy. It's a little
I
iffy.
kind of hated it. Everything about it. No, I'm just kidding.
No way. I loved it.
It
Is my
felt.
mic on?
Yeah, your mic's on.
Yeah.
Or do you need to turn your volume up on
Maybe.
your
Yeah.
headphones?
Just a little bit. I can't
So-
hear myself.
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
All right. This is not going to be the main focus of what we talk about today,
Better?
but we should
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about this trailer for a few minutes. Everything about that trailer felt different than every Matrix film I've ever seen. Didn't even. That was so alien to me. That was so weird feeling. Just like the way the movie looked.
Well, it looked like
Yeah.
it was just calling back to the first Matrix, and it was kind of like him rediscovering who he was, and then the whole him following the rabbit, and then him.
Would you say that he's plugged in again?
Yeah. All right. So let's look at where
He doesn't remember who he is.
Let's look at where the third Matrix left off. So a truce is struck between the humans. If you haven't seen the Matrix, none of this shit is going to make sense. So just like tune out for the next 5 minutes. A truce is obviously struck between humans and the machines. And the Matrix, I would imagine, is recreated in some form, and humans are reinserted into it. But I would imagine now they have some sort of a choice on whether or not they're there. Neo, or as he is currently in the trailer, Thomas Anderson again, doesn't remember any of the events of his life as Neo. And that could be because his body was reinserted back into the Matrix and he was just like, you know, given a reset or something. I don't know. But clearly, Trinity is also in the Matrix as well, and she appears to maybe have lost her memories of her life as Trinity as well, but for some reason when they meet each other, something clicks and they think, you know, wait, this feels weird, like we've had some sort of a history together. I don't know. Lawrence Fishburne is not in the film playing Morpheus, but we do have Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who looks like he's playing a Morpheus character. Has the role of Morpheus just been recast? Is that what I'm
looked like
saying?
it because he was like, I don't know who you are, and then basically referencing that you probably do know who he is. So,
and they clearly tried to make him look like Morpheus, the same
with the glasses,
and you could tell they had kind of like scored his face to make it look like Lawrence Fishburne's face. Like, you know, Lawrence Fishburne sort of has some very like significant facial features, and I think they made him look like Lawrence Fishburne. You know,
he's got the glasses though. I mean,
The
they
glasses.
might not be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the
what the fuck?
in the trilogy, they discuss it resetting at least 6-7 times or something. What if they reset it again?
Neo's iteration of the Matrix is the 6th Matrix.
It's the 6th one. So 7.
This would be
obviously
the 7th.
some form of numerology going on with religious based. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It looked great. I mean, it definitely looked more like Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Matrix 1, I mean, low
1999.
budget, I mean,
Yeah.
as well as they did with it, but I remember at the ending of the last movie, the Oracle's watching the sunrise, or is it the sunset? I don't know.
Sunrise.
And I think that color aspect they're bringing to this new movie, because it was greenish and stuff. It was very 90s.
Everything looked like it had a dark, like not a
the
dark.
machines made the Matrix as like 1999, right?
Yep.
It was the idea of
They
life in
recreated the
99,
world at the turn of the century.
even though
yeah.
it's in the future. Real life is in the future. So I think this. I mean, everyone's on their cell phones. You got a glimpse of that. Looking
I didn't
at
even think about
screens.
the color
They're
aspect.
plugged in a different way.
Yeah, when the sunset
know?
was like exploding,
It was like vibrant, right? In
crazy
your face,
colors,
right?
crazy colors that you don't see for the entirety of the movie. All three of the movies.
Right?
Everything
Even in real
has
life.
a green filter. Everything looks dingy. Everything looks like shit. Everything. So maybe this is a new iteration of the Matrix where humans have, I don't know, the ability to live their life more freely, and you know, possibly things aren't locked in 1999 anymore.
At least a different way of freedom. Another form of a veil covered over their eyes, you know?
But we did see a ship in what is known to us as the real world. We did see fields of pods in that trailer. So it seems like humans are still hooked into the power plant, unless that was a flashback or something. It's interesting because when I thought about the truce between humans and machines, I imagined a world where they were working together, humans and machines were working together in Zion, and there was no longer a need for the Matrix. But maybe enough people chose the Matrix? I don't know.
I'm excited.
There's only one way to find out, and it's to watch the movie, which comes out apparently on 12/22/21. Another thing I noticed is it said from director Lana Wachowski, and it looks like only one Wachowski sibling is going to be involved in this.
Yeah, I looked at the Wikipedia page yesterday.
So
and
the
she's
other
not even on the writing
Wachowski
or
sibling,
production.
whose name is Lily? Now?
Lana is the one that's
Lana's the one.
directing.
Yeah, I know, but the other
and
Wachowski sibling is Lily.
Yeah, I don't know if she doesn't look like from the credits that she's involved in anyway. I'm sure she is.
That's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she is though. She has to be.
No, she doesn't have to be. Well, she just doesn't want to do it anymore.
I don't know. I'm excited either way.
Adam, are you excited for it?
Adam, your first impression wasn't very...
You seem the most skeptical.
It just looked like, I love, especially in this day and age, originality. And then it looked like it was like the first half of the movie is just going to be like a very similar intro to how the first Matrix was, where he's figuring out who he was. But it's kind of cool. You get to see the old the characters, and they kind of don't know each other. It looked kind of cool. But then the whole idea of him figuring out the whole idea of the Matrix all over again. And then him sitting in front of the therapist really turned me off at first. I was like, Neo, the one in front of a therapist?
Yeah.
Come on. What
and
is
he's
that?
Like taking a bath with a rubber duck.
Yeah,
on
what
his
is
head.
that? I was like, that kind of turned me off a little bit. I was like, what the?
Also,
but I mean, whatever. I can't judge too much. If anyone doesn't know, if anyone knows me, they know that I'm pretty critical about a lot of movies. So that's just me. But
Well, and like Keanu Reeves, I love him to death. I love him more than most celebrities. He is possibly the best worst actor of all time. And if this movie relies on him having to like really act, it's gonna fuck it up.
Yeah, because in John Wick, I think that form of acting fits him well. Fits the character well.
Yeah,
he's an awkward guy.
He needs to just be a guy that his lines aren't necessarily too serious. He needs to just have lines like, "Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back." He just has to have lines like that. And whoa, he has to have lines. He's not like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm obviously going to go see it the day it comes out. I'm bummed that it's no longer coming out on the same day as John Wick 4. But beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, how are you guys doing today? You guys doing okay?
It's a nice, beautiful early morning here in Houston, Texas.
That's right.
And I think we have some interesting topics to talk about today.
Yeah.
The Venus Project, if no one ever heard of that. Alternative ways of living, alternative civilizations, societies. This should be interesting. And we got Aaron in here. If you
have Aaron on the show. If you didn't recognize him from the entire first 10 minutes of this podcast,
what's up, everyone?
Aaron has been on the show multiple times before. We've talked about conspiracy theories. We've talked about raising a baby during the apocalypse. Today we wanted to talk about society and societal structures and the way we as humans operate, and a thing called the Venus Project, which some of you guys might know about. It's kind of become pretty popular over the last little while. Some of you guys might have never heard of it. But, you think of the ways that we know of society functioning. We know there's capitalism and communism and socialism and, oligarchies and things like this. Well, what if there was a societal structure that was entirely resource-based, that sought to eliminate greed and human functions that detracted from the advancement of our species? What would that look like? It would look completely different from a society that we live in now that is dictated by scarcity and money. And one could argue that that's how society has looked for, if not all, the overwhelming majority of human history. So Adam or Aaron, either one of you, whoever would like to, could you give our listeners just a brief summary of what exactly you think the Venus Project is?
I'll let Aaron go because he's our expert today.
I'll let Jacque Fresco, the founder or the co-founder with Roxanne Meadows. Jacque Fresco died, I think, in 2017 at 101 years old. He's been working on this thing 50 years of his life.
Yeah.
He's like an engineer, social engineer. Like, I think one term he coined is like a socio-cyberneering, something like that.
Jesus.
Like, he was a visionary before his time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a futurist. So I have this clip of him in 1974 on an interview with Larry King. It was, I think the full interview is like over an hour, but I think this video is a good summary of that interview and him breaking down what the Venus Project is, what it proposes, because I think we've all been indoctrinated into this system of capitalism and using money to trade, barter systems, whatever. Like, we can't even fathom what life would be like without, like, oh, you got to go get a job, you got to get an education, work 9 to 5. But those are all ways of life because of we've been indoctrinated into that.
Yeah.
And so it's like I still, even knowing about this for years now, I still can't even like fully wrap my mind around what kind of life that would look like, or how we would even get there.
It's so different from what we like anything we've ever lived.
Yeah, because I completely question, like, how would we even get there? I don't know. So, anyways, I'll let this play, and it'll give you really good. He's so passionate about it, so it's only like a 4-minute clip. So, bear with it. It's just a deep concept, a deep idea that you can dive into for like 50 years, and you're still trying to get the details. It's in no way perfect, because you want to think, oh, it's some kind of utopian society, and it's not that. No. It's not, like you were saying, it's not socialism, it's not communism, because those involve money or some form of trade. It's the reallocation of resources. You think socialism? No, there's no money involved. So I'll play this clip. So let me put this full screen for everybody to see. Yeah, here we go.
The entire money-structured and materialistic-oriented society is a false society. 10 or 15 years from now, our society will go down in history as the lowest development in man. We have the brains, the know-how, the technology, and the feasibility to build an entirely new civilization.
You believe that we teach competition, that it's not bred into someone?
Competition is dangerous, socially offensive, considered right and normal, because you are brought up to that value system. What kind of competition did Jesus have? What kind of competition is there in your body? Suppose your brain said, I'm the most important organ, and the liver said, I am, and I want to go a free enterprise system. You'd rot away in a month if every organ of your body went out for itself. Socio-cyberneering does not appeal to governments, to private enterprise. We're going to do this thing just as the automobile phased out the stagecoach, just as television stepped in and phased out the old vaudeville and the old motion pictures. That history and technology is respecters of no society, no individual opinions, but it moves on, and we've got to be prepared to face the future.
In your society, there are no mayors of cities?
There are no mayors, there are no politicians, and you don't have to fill out any forms to go to the arts center or music center, and you go to a university whether you can afford it or not. You don't have to use any of the systems today. Let me briefly say this. You have a bumper in front of your car, behind your car. But your society, your car's hit on the side also. You have safety belts and harnesses in your car. But that assumes that you're going to be hit by the rear or in front. If you're hit on the side, you go right through the side of the windshield. What good are these approaches? They are designed by men that are cerebral insufficients. You've got to design a society with a bumper all around the car, phase out human drivers, put electronic guidance systems in cars, or eliminate the automobile and design a holistic transportation system. We must put our mind to this as we do to put a man on the moon. We must put our mind to the social problem. We wish to get away from politics. We wish to get away from the old world method of solving problems. This is clean sources of power. By utilizing the natural heat of the earth, that is volcanic energy,
that is a
or
fucking
the magma,
wild
or
image.
the molten lava under the earth, of which there are approximately 500 potentials. If we tap a mountain in Hawaii called Mount Aloha, we can get enough power to electrify the world. We can get enough power from that volcano alone. We have 500 potential volcanoes we can harness. We can use that natural heat from the volcano. No smog, no smoke, no dirt, no gases, no fuels, no oil spills, and no more burning of fuels in any city to generate power. If Japan used Fujiyama, they don't need to burn oil. They don't need oil. All of that heat is sitting there. 20 million years of power right under the Earth's surface. In fact, you don't even need to use fusion power or nuclear power. And it's easy to tap, and it's clean and available. As soon as we make up our minds to put scientists, rather than on weapons, nerve gas, on harnessing the Earth power that is already here, it would take 10 years to change the surface of the Earth, to rebuild the world into a second Garden of Eden. The choice lies with you. The stupidity of a nuclear arms race, the development of weapons, trying to solve your problems politically by electing this political party or that political party, that all politics is immersed in corruption. Let me say it again. Communism, socialism, fascism, the Democrats, the liberals, we want to absorb human beings. Women's lib, all organizations that believe in a better life for man. There are no Negro problems or Polish problems or Jewish problems or Greek problems or women's problems. They're human problems. To come into socio-cyberneering and take your part and function. We are not concerned with the divisions of segments of society.
No control of population?
Population control is dependent upon education. We feel an educated population needs no control.
You wouldn't stop sex?
No, sir.
Yeah. Good move, Jacque.
Oh, with that little wink at the end. You wouldn't stop sex? No, sir. Ding, bitch. Every part of that video, it felt like they were about to cut his mic. Like, I don't know. When he's, no, you know, he's like, he just starts going, and you're just like expecting them to go, all right, we're going to go to commercial. We're going to fucking go to commercial.
I mean, he's definitely a leader, and you can tell he's got that orator, that he's got the vibe of
something about all these people, right?
For sure. And so, yeah, it's really fascinating. There's definitely a lot of questions there, and so let's clear it up.
Lots of questions.
And one thing I definitely want to talk about is, first, he mentions all of the other forms of governance that we have had throughout history, right? And ultimately, none of them have been successful, right? I mean, even the ones today, like, we can say, yeah, these ways of governing are working, but are we thriving? Is everyone without suffering, right? We still have mass amounts of poverty. There's tons of problems and issues going on every single day, every single second that that don't necessarily have to be happening, right? But they are. And so that I think we should clear up first, why would we want to even consider another form of living, another form of governance with what we have right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the problems that we have today. Poverty, starvation, our prison system, our healthcare system. Most systems in our current way of life is either corrupt or just flat out isn't working because of the capitalistic system. I mean, you look at the whole COVID thing right now with people working from home. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have freaking the technology we have today.
The internet,
no one's working from home in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, Yeah. So, I mean, and then you look at people obviously there's other systems that I think are better than capitalistic systems that aren't the Venus Project. I think socialism would do pretty well. But that's still using money, and that's just going to breed greed, and people are still going to take advantage of that system, So, I mean, what I really like, because you can get into like the technical system aspect of it, but I think what's really telling for this system and how Jacque Fresco talks about it is our behavior in those systems, because he talks a lot about whether you agree with it or not, because this gets into psychology, but, talks about nature versus nurture, like what is our human nature, because a lot of people say this will never work because we're born greedy, we're born with these problems. It's just how humans are, and I think it's just the wrong way of looking at it, because we're all products of our environment. We're like a lot of examples. I mean, you can use so many examples. Like if you raise a Jew in a Nazi home, he's gonna be raised with Nazi tendencies and Nazi ideas. He's gonna be racist, So what makes a Nazi a Nazi? What makes a thief? What makes a
Nazi? That just reminded me of that Dave Chappelle skit where he's the KKK. Remember?
Oh yeah,
exactly, man. That's a perfect example. Man.
Remember that was so funny. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah,
our behaviors are based on our environment.
Right.
So
100%.
So in our prison system, our current justice system, we're punishing people for stealing when they're stealing because of the system, not because they're a thief. We need to punish them and put them in prison.
What's the girl's name who was recently on Joe Rogan from North Korea?
Yeonmi Park.
Yeonmi Park, is that how you say her name?
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about gruesome imagery where she was like walking through the street and saw this boy with, I hate even saying this, like with this boy, like, just in gruesome pain, starvation, and he was to the point of starvation where the body was literally, his intestines was like hanging out of his body. And it was just the most gruesome thing you can ever imagine. But she said she was just walking by and she had no reaction to it. She didn't feel sad. She didn't feel mad. She didn't feel anything. She said she just felt nothing. She just saw it and just walked by. And it just made me think, like what you're talking about is like, yeah, whenever you're accustomed and conditioned to something, it can even be that brutal. It can be even that extreme, but you're not going to react to it. You're not going to have any type of, say about it, because that's just normal. That's just the way it is. And that's the way we've all grown to like understand. No one was born, or no one graduated elementary school or middle school or high school and said, all right, you know what? I want to choose to live in this type of society. I want to choose to live in that kind of culture or whatever. I mean, yeah, you can move across the world and move in different places and live in a different area and try to experience that life, but it's still, you don't really have that many options, right? I mean, you either have one of 3 options that you can kind of choose from of what kind of society you want to live in. Other than that, that's it. But, you know, so the fact that the choice isn't even there is interesting. And another interesting fact is, like, why is there nobody like this guy why is there not a room or people, like, why isn't it in our government to talk about different things? The closest thing we ever had was Bernie Sanders, who was bringing up socialist ideas, right? And an important thing to remember is, like, a lot of these ideas and concepts aren't stagnant. They don't just remain one thing and stay the same definition for the entirety, right? Even with capitalism, it's constantly changing. We're constantly learning different things about it and trying to adapt in ways that work best with what we're doing. And so it's the same thing with these ideas and concepts. Like, even what he's talking about in 1970s, I'm sure a lot of that has radically changed today to try to match and figure out what's going on with the way humans are today. So, yeah, it's just really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note that, yeah, like, obviously capitalism has a lot of flaws, but it's not. I mean, it obviously worked to a degree. I mean, look at the huge cities we have and the technology. I mean, we've been to the fucking moon. We have, you know, cars that go 250 miles an hour, and we have electric cars that can go for hundreds of miles, and we have all kinds of medical devices we've developed, and we have huge sprawling cities where people, you know, I'm down with a lot of socialism principles. I love Bernie Sanders. I consider myself a democratic socialist. But, like, I mean, you can't deny that capitalism has had its benefits and it's worked well and it's done great for the Western world. I'd much rather live in capitalism than a lot of other societal structures. But, yeah, you're right. Like, there should be a place in humanity for discussing how society works.
Alternative ways of living.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, it should be a discussion that we're having on a massive scale. Like, your average everyday human should be able to turn on the TV and see the world coming together to discuss, like, how can we make human society the most optimal possible.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? It's
I think if you want to learn more, it's only beneficial. So I don't know if y'all remember the Zeitgeist movies.
Yeah.
Zeitgeist Addendum. I think they mention Jacque Fresco and the Venus Project in both of those. So, I mean, I highly recommend watching those. There's lots of documentaries that the Venus Project has put together, like The Choice is Ours. A couple more. Just listen to lectures of those, because I think the more people questioning our current system, the better. We're only going to improve, you know?
And think about how many people haven't even done that, let alone dive into this conversation. Not even just think about, oh, there could be an alternative way of living. Oh, what would that look like? Like, I guarantee you that's a very small percent of the world have even thought about alternative ways of governance, because it's just, like I said earlier, it's just not in us to, you know, it's conditioned in us.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about, okay. There was this great graph you pulled up yesterday, and I only brought this up because I was recently watching the Russell Brand interview Candace Owen, and they're having this heated debate.
Oh my God.
A lot about politics and governance and how we should live in a society, right? And it was very interesting conversation. And one of the points was she was talking about how the richest people pay the most taxes, but she didn't bring up the point that they pay the most taxes because they have the most money. But whenever you compare it to how much they're actually making to what they're actually paying, it's actually a very small percent of what they're actually paying.
She's sitting there and she's sitting there going, "Oh, the 1% pays 85% of the taxes. Right. What do you want them to do? Pay 100% of the taxes?" And it's like, no, you dumb bitch. I want them to pay for an appropriate amount of their, you know, if someone is worth billions of dollars, all right, yeah, if they put out, you know, X amount of money, sure, it's going to be more than a lot of people, but percentage-wise, it's nowhere near where it should be, you know? Right. So it's just
and then you look at the poor or the less fortunate people who aren't making or are living off of minimum wage or less of minimum wage, they're paying like an incredibly high percentage of what they're actually making, their income, which that doesn't add up. That doesn't add up to how much the rich are paying, but that's still a dramatically more compared to how much they're making.
Yeah, so poor people are paying more taxes depending on how much they're paying for their way of life. Like how much money do you need for food? shelter, water, a car.
Right.
The amount of taxes they're paying out of that makes those expenses unlivable. Like you can't live off of that.
You can't live off of
with
it.
the amount of taxes they're paying.
Right.
Rich people, I mean, how much money do you need to live that quality of life? You know.
Yeah.
So compared, you know,
Yeah.
poor people are
And
paying
so-
more taxes.
right.
Not totally. Right.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, the amount X number of dollars for taxes. Poor people are not paying as much as rich. But compared to their way of life, they can't pay that much. Rich people can pay tons more taxes and still have the same quality of life. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you have a company like Amazon that is worth well over $150 billion, and they didn't pay a dime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
and
They didn't pay
crazy,
a penny.
So here's a huge problem
Zero.
that we have in our capitalistic society. One, it's corrupt. It's run by corporations. Corporations control everything. I mean, why is lobbying even a thing? And then you have this thing it's a trend that's been happening for years now, where the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, and that middle class keeps on shrinking. And that trend is not going anywhere. It's continued even now today during the whole pandemic coronavirus. The rich got dramatically richer, and no one's talking about it. It's a huge problem in our culture, and especially in the Western world. So, you know, what's the alternative? How can we fix that? Like, how do you stop these people who are mega billionaires and they can give $1,000 to every person on the planet? Like, how do you, what do we do about that?
Yep. I think one thing a big problem, another issue that comes up in our current system right now is automation. Mm-hmm. And I think they've done projections where by 2045 or some 30 years from now, 800 million jobs are going to be automated. Mm-hmm. So what happens to those 800 million people? We could probably put half of them back into the workforce somehow, but there's still 400 million. So I think a lot of people in the next 5-10 years are going to be talking about UBI, Universal Basic Income, which, I mean, it's just another Band-Aid on the bigger issue, right? Which is how our system usually works. We're always putting Band-Aids on stuff. You know, our politicians are educated to be politicians and to work within an already corrupted system. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even as much as I like Bernie, you know, talking about socialist value, ideas and stuff, I think he's spreading a good message. Obviously, he's coming from a good place, but I think within the system, it's still going to be corruption. There's still going to be, I mean, how are you going to take down the biggest billionaire, trillionaire pharmaceutical companies, military industrial complex, where ideas are still like, we're a nationalist, you know, competitive place where we still have boundaries. You know, how are we gonna ever get to a place where there's no poverty if we're not managing resources?
Yeah, you can't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it would have to be a total reshaping of the way, like, you can't do any of this in a world where greed still exists, in a world where, like, money can still be in politics. Like, everything Bernie Sanders is talking about, like, it's great in theory. Like, you want someone that strives to make things better like this, but it's not like he would just get in office and that shit would just happen. Like, Bernie's in office, everything's gonna go away. Money in politics is gonna go away.
There's too many powers that be. There's too many powers that be.
Yeah, and I think the president, in general, is limited on what they can do. I mean, I think the best the president can do is just speak to people and spread ideas, you know?
Mm-hmm. And go to war.
Yeah, I mean...
even then, military-industrial complex
even then, I mean,
that.
what is Bernie going to do? Like, oh, we're going to pull out of every country around the world? No. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump to this point then, because let's get on the topic of the Venus Project. What are the biggest, like fundamental changes you can see the Venus Project, like, having on our society and our culture? Obviously, we heard what Jacque Fresco was saying, and I'm curious to hear, like, because you talk about a dramatic change, like a rapid, dramatic, complete flip over of our system, and, you know, it doesn't matter about the president, it doesn't matter who's in the office. What matters is our complete change of our value systems, our morals, and how we perceive each other, and how we all live together. Right, and you think that's like one of the biggest things is like our perception of each other, how we treat each other, our value systems. Mm-hmm. Those things are probably the biggest changes. I mean, we could talk about the money, we could talk about all the other stuff, but
think
like
technologically, That's one of the biggest changes, and changing our environment so that we change our behavior. I mean, because there's like this false sense of scarcity with products. You know, Jacque talks about how he grew up during the Great Depression. He's born in 1916, so he's a little boy experiencing homelessness when there's empty housing. Why are there people in the streets when we could just fill them up for free? Let these people stay and have shelter. There's bicycles, you know, from these businesses. There's these shops just full of stuff.
Right,
that no one can buy
storage units full of food and everything we possibly need to survive,
everything
but
stocked,
it's not being used.
But because of the system, no one can afford anything, you know?
Right.
And I think changing our environment, so technologically, everything's automated. We can build housing with machines with no labor right now if we wanted to.
For sure.
You know, we could tap into resources that will make energy so efficient. You know, we're throwing shit away. We have oceans full of crap. It's the size of the freaking continents, you know. You know, every way of life is corrupted. We can't even get decent food anymore. Everything's sprayed with chemicals. We can't get, clean fish. Like, we can't do any of these things because of the system, because of money. So the way of life, like our behavior, is just changing the environment technologically, making, like you heard what he was saying about cars, phasing out vehicles. We don't need individual cars. I look at Elon Musk's ideas about making these tunnel system stuff. I think it's ridiculous. Like,
people driving their own personal car into a little tiny narrow tunnel.
First off, why have individual cars going through underground? Just connect the cars, make it bigger, make a bigger tunnel, make it on rails, and you have subways. Like, why is he? It's all because he's making money off of it, getting subsidies from the government, making billions of dollars from the government. He's not making money from people buying Teslas. The government is giving him money. If you just look at his finances, so just the way of life will change technologically because of automation, and if there's an abundance, people are stealing. You see these big riots, it's because people have this sense of scarcity, and that changes our behavior.
Like resources are finite.
Yes, when they're not. Right. They're not finite, or they are finite, but it's scarce because business is making it scarce. Like any industry, we're building cars, we're building technology, phones, computer systems that are built to fail within 10, 15 years. I don't know.
I mean, that's one of the biggest
car has an
marketing
update
sales. That's one of the biggest things that marketing companies do is create scarcity. People will want to buy it. Look at the PlayStation. Come on now.
A perfect example, I think, is a light bulb.
Right.
Engineers built light bulbs way back in the day to last a lifetime.
Right.
We have light bulbs right now that are only going to last a couple years.
Right.
They're built like that because the industry told the scientists we need to make light bulbs that only last this long because people aren't going to rebuy light bulbs.
Right.
Sure.
So we're throwing shit away in this consumer-based system with the intent of buying something else to replace it. That will just be phased out completely in a resource-based economy where we're prioritizing resources.
Right.
So that's why I think overpopulation is a scam. Like, we're not overpopulated. We're just not thinking about how to use resources efficiently. I think we're we're putting too many people in one spot, not taking into account how much resources are being used in that one place by how many people. It's every man for themselves. You can gas up your car as much as you want. This isn't about controlling people's lives, saying you can't use this amount of gas. You have to pay a carbon tax. You have to take this medication. You have to do this. No, it's like Jacque was saying, education. An educated people is, you don't have to control those people because they know what works best for that environment. Everyone's kind of has this social contract. And that's pretty much that's the whole change. I kind of went on a rant there, but I think you get what I'm saying. And there's a lot of questions. It's not perfect. It's about using the scientific method in creating society. You know what I'm saying? Socio-cyberneering. I don't even know exactly what that means, but
So, but what would it take to make this work? Because humans, at least as we are today, inherently enjoy the idea of things being theirs. He's talking about a world where
Right.
You don't own a car. You don't own a home.
Yes.
You own nothing. There's no fucking shopping because no one owns, like, it's just everything is everyone's.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
but think
humans
about
today just mentally cannot.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
100%.
I don't want that.
Yeah,
I want my own
completely
car.
agree.
I
Yeah.
want my own fucking house. I want, if I could have it, I'd have my own land. Like, I think it's like inherent in the majority of humans is just the desire to like have your own,
For sure.
So what would it take to even get us to the point where we could even start to live like this? Because it's a complete restructuring of society.
Yeah.
Cities would look completely different.
I don't know.
Housing would look completely different. There would be no one owning cars. Everyone would just go everywhere in communal vehicles.
Yeah. I think we could get to a point to where life is so convenient, and you would be at the point to where it's so hard to explain because the individual's life from person to person is going to be different. Like, I can't explain how your life would be or my life would be in this system because I just don't know. And it would take time. It's not going to be easy to transition. Because I think we just have to unlearn. I think it's harder to unlearn things than to learn them. You know what I'm saying? We've all been indoctrinated to this. Like, if you imagine a kid growing up in the society, I think, or learning about this, it would be easier because they wouldn't grow up thinking, oh, I need a car. Like, I really, really want a car. I want 40 acres,
Yeah. I think you said it earlier. It was a great point is the convenience factor. And there's people right now who are building cities and helping rebuild cities with that in mind. And being that, like, for example, here's a great example. When I lived in Austin, I first moved to Austin, you couldn't use plastic bags. They just didn't have them. You bring your own bags or you pay for a bag.
Yeah.
So that automatically creates the convenience factor. Well, you just have to bring your bag. You just bring your bags now. Like, every time we go to the grocery store, make sure you grab your bags. If you don't, you're going to pay an extra couple bucks. And that right there is a wonderful way to start that transition. You slowly start to phase out certain things that are just obviously detrimental to the planet and to ourselves, right?
Yeah. Convenience factor. Everything in that Venus Project society, I think, would be so convenient to the point to where you wouldn't want to drive a car because it's going to take you longer.
You make the healthy options convenient. You make the right options convenient.
And that's going to change people's behavior.
Right.
And not want to hoard water and food and electronics and
especially when you know it's going to be there.
Because it's so abundant. Food is so abundant. Water is so abundant. Public transportation is so convenient and so efficient, that like you could still get a gas burning car if you wanted to, I mean, we could have racetracks built outside cities that people love just freaking gunning it, like that. If that's what you want to do, the air would be so clean, it's not going to have really any effect. We would probably, the tires on those vehicles were probably way more efficient, so they wouldn't be thrown out as much or able to reused and melted into something different. Like every point of society would be drastically different in how we use and reuse resources. Anything, like all the parts in your phone, because of what you're saying, Tom, back to your point, like about not owning anything, it's such a strange concept because like if you think of going into a library, you rent a book. I mean, you don't rent it, you borrow it with the intent of returning it.
Sure.
So when you're done with that, you just go back and return it. Like if you wanted a bicycle, there would be so many bikes so efficiently manufactured that you could take a bike for years if you wanted to and return it when you don't want to use it anymore. So it's just that social contract of like, we're all working in this together.
But people, it's like, but the bike thing, people would just be like, I want this bike, and then just not return it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but eventually you're just going to have a bike. If you're not using it, it's just going to be gathering dust. And also, I think the convenience of returning it is also another factor. Because a lot of people don't do a lot of things because it's just inconvenient. Like, what are you going to do with your bike that you buy when you're not using it? It's just sitting over there gathering. Some people don't ride their bikes for years. They're just gathering dust, You look at people's storage containers just with crap in there that aren't used for years. All of that could be reused instead of just thrown out or resold or whatever,
Yeah, and if you just think about the aspect of like wanting to have your own bike or whatever, it's interesting because once you realize that if this society comes into be, if you realize that that bike no longer holds like value anymore. It's like you couldn't sell it. You couldn't do really anything with it other than ride it. You wouldn't be doing. The only purpose for that bike is to be used to ride somewhere, to go somewhere. If it's not being used for that, then you're just like, okay, I can get a bike anytime I want. Let me just return it. Hey,
or like
let my friend borrow. Hey, you want to borrow this bike? Whatever. I'm not using it. Just bring it back whenever. Or I can just go get another one anytime.
There's new models of cars built every year for the same car. The new Chevy F-150, new upgrades, new computer system, new tires, new gas mileage, whatever.
Yeah.
Every year. That is not efficient.
So like here's the idea. Like here's why that is such a problem is because there's no incentive to continue using things that are becoming older or outdated. Like those things, you just throw them away. They just get tossed away. You just get resold, scrapped, whatever the fuck. Like, but they can be reused so much and be used like abundantly to the point where there wouldn't be nearly as much waste. There wouldn't be nearly as much just things going down. Like it's just interesting to think about because when you start to realize how much waste is, we were talking about this the other day too, when I used to work at a restaurant, and I had a moment of realization of how much food we waste in this country. I'm not even talking about the world. I'm just talking about this country and alone, because I can't even fathom the world. And I realized, like, I worked at this Mexican restaurant where we would have tubs of rice and beans and fajita meat and just like a ton of food that can feed 5 families at least, right? Like a ton of food. And it didn't get used at the end of the night. And it was like every once in a while we would save like a couple things of beans or whatever. But if it was like a day or two old, there's nothing wrong with the food. It's edible. You can eat it. It's perfectly fine. All going down the drain. It's all getting in the trash. Trash bags full. 5, 10 trash bags full of food. None of it's getting eaten. It's just going straight into the trash. And this is one restaurant. Think about
one
the
restaurant
millions
in one city.
Think about just a town. Then think about the city. Then think about a state. I can't even fathom the amount of food that gets thrown away. Edible food. And we have millions of people starving on this planet. And we're throwing away millions of tons of food a day. Yeah. Add that up to a year. It's just unfathomable the amount of waste that goes in this country.
Dude, I used to work I've told you this story. I used to work at Domino's Pizza. And, if an order ever didn't get picked up or it got fucked up in the oven, like, maybe the guy on the line didn't put the right toppings on it that the person ordered, or someone took it out on delivery, but the delivery, the customer it was going to didn't want it, it got sent back. We would end up with pizzas every night. And we were allowed to take them as the coworkers. You could grab some pizza or some wings. But if no one took it, right, if, like, let's say there was a night where there was 20 pizzas left over and only 3 pizzas got taken home by, this sounds like a math problem if Johnny has 3 pizzas. But anyway, that leaves 17 fucking pizzas. Those pizzas would just go in the trash. And one night, this guy called the store and he was like, hey, man, I just lost my job. I'm about to get kicked out of my apartment. I have my kids here. We have nothing to eat. Yeah. Would it be possible if I just swing by after you guys close and you can give me the pizzas that didn't get purchased today, or like one pizza that he wasn't even asking for all of them. He's like, can you please just give me one of the pizzas that got messed up or like a canceled order? And I was like, all right, man, come by. We close at 10. Swing by at like 10:15. I'll come out the side door. I'll give you these pizzas. So 10:15 comes and I'm like, boxing the pizzas up, and I'm going out there. My manager goes, where are you taking those pizzas? And I said, oh, there's a guy who's struggling. He just asked if he could have like the canceled pizzas. And he was like, no, absolutely not. Throw that away. You cannot give these pizzas away. Like, you cannot give food away or anything like that. And I just thought, it's policy. Oh, illegal. Illegal. So fucking stupid. It was I almost quit right there. I was like, you stupid fuck. Yeah. This is ridiculous.
I had the very same experience at my job.
You're going to sit here and just allow, on a middle management level, you're going to allow these policies to exist. Like, what the fuck do you care? All right, Domino's corporate won't be happy, but you, Justin, fucking manager, why would you care? If it's so stupid and it's so infuriating that this is happening everywhere.
Yeah, and that's just for food alone. That's just food. Now think about all of the other aspects, all the other industries that just throw away meaningless shit. Toys, bikes,
single-use plastic, toys.
Single-use plastic. It's immeasurable. So we're talking about a society like this.
As
like,
I drink out of my single-use plastic
right.
water
And so,
bottle. Oops.
like, if we just think about just that aspect alone of just waste, then we can change the world, like, dramatically. Like, it would be a completely different world that we lived in if that was the case. People, it's just interesting to think about.
But
so.
I know we have to wrap up soon. I just think it's important to note that, like, the Venus Project isn't perfect. And like, there's flaws. And, I mean, like, I don't want to live in a world where the only vehicles we have are all automated. You know what I mean? I don't want that.
There's another great man I wanted to talk about. His name is Michael Tellinger. He's a part of the Ubuntu project in South Africa, and his ideas are about I don't know how to say this right. Contributionism.
Yeah.
And
I think he calls it Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, yeah.
In South Africa.
Ubuntu.
Yeah.
And if
He's
anyone
written a book
hasn't
about
heard about this guy, definitely check him out. Definitely read about him and see what he's doing there. He's inviting anybody to come stay there. It's a whole self-sustaining place. Anyone can come. The only catch is that you contribute to what's happening there in whatever form that is, right? Whatever skills, talents that you have, you can come live there as long as you contribute in your form or fashion, however that suits you best. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. I was like, wow, I would love to go there and check that out, because it just sounds like, wow, it's an interesting way to live. And, you know, that's another form, a way of living that would be interesting to think about.
I love comparing the two because the idea is the same, essentially, but except in a resource-based economy, the Venus Project, things would be so efficient and so automated that we would come to a point to where you wouldn't even have to contribute to anything because everything would be done for you. The cooking, this is if you wanted to. Obviously, you could cook in your own kitchen, drive your own car, take a bike if you need to, get a camera equipment if you need to do whatever you wanted to, be photos, art, music, science, whatever your passion is, whatever your drive is, you could do that. Just like in Ubuntu, I mean, whatever skill set you want to contribute with, you can.
Yeah, and then here's
the convenience of it is that you don't have to. No one's telling you what to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and here's another part
with... This
with
is not totalitarian.
Yeah, and there's another part with everything becoming automated. It should ideally free up a lot of time for a lot of people. In that, you should have a lot more time to pursue your passions, to pursue, if you want to create art, create art. If you want to sing, if you want to practice science just for fun. You know what I mean? All those things, like, you can do because you have allocated time for that, right? In that, will create your contribution. Say, like, someone just wants to do something for fun and do something because they're passionate about it. And guess what happens when people do that? We see people thrive. We see people become happier than they've ever been, right? Whenever you're doing your passion, right? So you create a happier society. And then on top of that, those people are still contributing in their way, in whatever way that makes them happy. So it's just, it's another way to look at the world.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Another question that comes up to me that I question is, like, incentive, especially in the transition phase. If the majority of people would want to use this alternative, like, what's going to drive the incentive for people to want to contribute in some way, Like, what's going to make people want to educate themselves in whatever passion that they have? Because the only incentive would be to reach that point of automation in society to where we would be more free with our time. So that's another question I think a lot of people might struggle with, including me. Like, what is going to make me? Because, we have jobs right now that to make money to buy things. To have that freedom. You want to save money to go on a trip to travel, that's what we're working for, or to better your company's, fourth quarter income, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So how would that transition to a society without money, because a lot of people would argue that money is the main incentive driver for wherever we're going, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. How about the incentive be that you live in a clean, happy world where you don't have to worry about a lot of bullshit,
no pollution,
and just
clean food.
Yeah, just an overall
functional,
healthier, sustainable society where everyone wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds dreamy, but
that's
why
the
not?
thing.
Why not dream about it? Why not contemplate it? Why not? You think about, oh, you sound crazy. You're all flowers and rainbows, but you know what? That's the craziest people with the craziest ideas are the ones who push the boundaries and push the envelopes and created the most craziest shit you ever had in your life, and go look at what's in your pocket right now, created by Steve Jobs. Everyone called him crazy. Everyone called Tesla crazy. Everyone called all these people crazy. But guess what? They created the most amazing shit you've ever seen. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's wild. It's hard to wrap your brain around because we've been indoctrinated.
So conditioned to live the exact opposite way.
Yeah. It's ever since we've been in school, like you were saying, no one's graduating school saying I want to change the system, or you know what I'm saying? Like no one's graduating school saying I want to not use money. I want to reallocate resources. You know, Jacque Fresco was saying it. Like imagine the people watching that interview. This guy's crazy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He's a fascist. He's a communist, you know?
It doesn't even matter about what he's saying. It's purely based on the fact that it's an alternative view.
For sure.
And that goes with everything in our culture and society. Anything that goes against the mainstream view of anything, it's immediately looked at with skepticism.
I mean, we're looking at censorship
instead
right
of just
now, man.
entertaining the idea. Just entertain it and just think about it for a second and use your own critical thinking skills and be like, okay, let's think about it. Really, let's think about it. Instead of immediately putting down anything that goes against what you believe.
Yeah. So I hope this, spreads some of the word for the Venus Project, because I really love thinking about the way an alternative, because so many people are like, yeah, this system doesn't work.
Right.
But there's no alternative. Yeah, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. We need to fix this. We're reaching out to our political leaders that know nothing about innovation. Like you ask any politician, how do you increase the yield in crops? How do you make bridges more efficient and longer lasting? They know nothing about anything. Ask them yourself. Don't just listen to us.
Right.
Look into it yourself. That's why I think the first step is to just educate yourself as much as you can with the time that you have. Because honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think it's gonna be reached within our lifetimes.
No.
I mean, just be real. With the way life is right now, the way people are right now. Like no one's unlearning anything. We're just arguing based on our biases and what we've been conditioned with. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
But
it's also important to think, or
individually,
to know that there are places like this where you can go, Ubuntu, and I know several other places where they are doing alternative. They're experimenting.
Yeah, Venus Project has a facility with 10 structures, a research facility.
So there's places that are experimenting this right now.
Look up their facility. It's awesome looking. Their buildings are like these dome-shaped, like hurricane-proof, flood-proof. Like it's just a good thing to look at, and the ideas of Jacque Fresco, just within an engineering aspect, like building homes that are so hurricane-proof and so they can last so long. They're built into the nature. Skyscrapers are the dumbest idea I've ever seen. Like the way we're building these cities is so terrible. So every aspect of life, go look it up. Go on venusproject.com. They have books, resources, non-Venus Project resources you can read. There's so many suggested reading of all kinds of books and stuff like that. So if you want to learn more, I think we should.
Cool, man.
It's a great idea.
I mean, we barely even scratched the surface.
Yeah, this thing could go.
We could have talked about how Venus Project cities are laid out with like this fucking circular
there's
roads.
So many.
It's so crazy, and it's such a interesting take on what life could look like and would look like. So maybe we revisit this on another podcast. I know we have to go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
but
I'd
anyway,
love to.
Until next time, you guys, why don't you dream up in your head new ways for society to work? Never stop dreaming. Never stop challenging the norm. Fuck evil, fuck greed, and stay safe out there in the cosmos. Go watch The Matrix, bitch.
Peace.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Peace.